Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the syllabus for our class as well as introducing our course overall. So let me begin by officially welcoming you guys to our class, Math 191, Section 0382, for the summer 2020. My name is Ben Mitchell, and I'll be you guys' instructor for the next 8 weeks as we work our way through this class. So, to begin with, what I'd like to do is talk just a little bit about you guys about our syllabus for our class, some of the course policies, some of the expectations, just standard things that we would do even if we were meeting in person and that we would do on the first day of class. So we're going to just sort of work our way through this syllabus here, and as we go along, we'll also introduce some of the key aspects of the class. So, as mentioned, this is Math 191, which is Single Variable Calculus 2. This class is mainly focused on techniques of integration, sequences, series, and then investigating single variable calculus in other coordinate systems. And we'll talk about all that a little bit more as we sort of go along. First of all, as you guys know, this class is going to be held entirely online this term. There are no mandatory class meetings. However, I do want to call your guys' attention to the sort of first piece of information here, that we will be having office hours twice a week via Zoom. Those times are on Tuesdays from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and on Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Now, sometimes when we get closer to exams or if there's a topic that needs to be discussed, we might have additional times, but these 2 times here, these are guaranteed to happen each week. On each of these days, in the morning of that day, you guys will receive a reminder email telling you that those office hours are going to happen that day. There will also be a link to the Zoom meeting. So you'll basically get reminders about these each morning on the day that they're supposed to occur. But just remember, Tuesdays 2 to 3 p.m. and Wednesdays 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., those will be our online office hours. Now, the online office hours are, of course, not mandatory. They're completely optional, but I do strongly recommend making use of them. It's really our one opportunity to have a live discussion of some of the topics. Obviously, if you guys also have questions just about the course in general, you're welcome to ask those as well. They're open office hours, so the meeting will just be going on in that time frame. Feel free to hop on whenever you're sort of free during that time frame. One other good thing about the open office hours is that we will be making use of like a whiteboard during those times so that we can work through problems. If we do work through problems, I will always post the notes from the different office hours onto our Canvas site. So even if you weren't able to make those office hours, you can sort of review the notes that we covered, and you can see if there were any sort of the questions that you might have wanted to ask that got answered there. Also on the top of the syllabus here, you can see the office number. That's irrelevant since we're going to be completely online, but we're just supposed to include it officially on the syllabus anyway. And then also very important is my email, bmitchell@elcamino.edu. Obviously, being fully online, it's a good idea to make sure that you're comfortable communicating through email. You guys will get a lot of emails through me, through your MyECC email. And if you ever need to reach out to me, that email address is the good one to use. All right. The other stuff that you guys consider to see here, we can go through pretty quickly. The prerequisite for this course, of course, is Math 190 or Calculus 1, which is differential calculus. You definitely need that. If you didn't take 190, you have to make sure that you've taken at least some sort of introductory calculus course. This class jumps right in as an immediate continuation of our Math 190 course. We start from the middle of the textbook because the earlier chapters were already covered in 190. So definitely make sure that you're comfortable with that stuff from early calculus. There are some review materials already posted onto your Canvas site that you can look over that go over some of the basic skills, not so much of the conceptual stuff from 190, but of the basic skills, derivatives, limits, integrals that you need to know. Definitely review those and make sure you're comfortable with those. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to email or post on the discussion boards that we have on Canvas. One other little note here is you'll just see that we mentioned this concept of early transcendentals. All of the calculus courses at El Camino are using early transcendentals, which just mean that we use transcendental functions, exponentials, logarithmic, and trigonometric functions right away. So we will see lots and lots of those from the very start of our course. In terms of a description of the class, right, technically we're going to be studying methods of integration, applications of integrals, improper integrals, numerical integration, infinite sequences, series, power series, parametric equations, polar coordinates, and conic sections. To be honest, the vast majority of this 191 course really focuses on the concept of accumulation. If you guys took 190 or if you took any sort of differential course, you'll know that the main focus in an introductory calculus course is about the infinitesimal. Basically, what happens in a limit as you approach infinitely close to something, or what happens to the tangent line when you bring 2 points infinitely close to each other. Everything was about studying these sort of infinitesimally small ideas. In this class, in 191, we're going to be really talking a lot about accumulation. We're going to be accumulating an infinite amount of infinitesimally small things. And we'll investigate that through these concepts called improper integrals, and then again when we get to sequences and series. Now, along the way, we'll also learn some more computational things like better ways to integrate. At this point from your introductory calculus course, you only really have some basic antiderivatives and u substitution. We'll develop a whole myriad of different techniques to help with integration. And also, we'll sort of at the very end of our course revisit almost all of the calculus that you've learned, derivatives, limits, integrals, everything in different coordinate systems, namely parametric coordinates and polar coordinates. So this course does cover a lot of different things, but to be honest, the vast majority of it really is going to focus on an idea of accumulation. And we'll talk more about that as we start our class. What are the materials, or what things do you sort of need for this class? Well, you absolutely need this required textbook, Calculus Early Transcendentals by James Stewart, the 8th edition. If you just took 190 at El Camino, then this is the same textbook. If you plan on taking 220 at El Camino, you'll be using the same textbook, so it's definitely a good idea to have this, if only as an investment. You will need this textbook for this class for several reasons. One, it's good to read through the sections as you guys sort of watch the video lectures. Each of the video lectures corresponds to sections, so you know exactly what sections from the textbook you should be looking at. I also do pick out suggested exercises from the textbook for you guys to try. So having the textbook to know what those exercises are is important. And sort of third and finally, it's also a good idea to have this textbook just on the basis of, as you guys are sort of getting more and more advanced mathematically, it's becoming more and more important to make sure you're comfortable reading sort of mathematical texts. And this Stewart book is still pretty introductory in terms of how it's written. So it's a great start to sort of just get comfortable reading through a mathematical textbook, reading how they write about examples, reading about how they write proofs and things like that. So definitely make sure you have access to this textbook. That's really the only required material you need for this class. You guys have a Canvas site that's already set up. You should definitely check that out. That's automatically granted to you as soon as you're enrolled in the class, so that's not really an extra resource, but you will need to access that and make sure you're familiar with it. Other than that, you'll need whatever sort of way you like to take notes and things like that, but no other really required materials. Just again to sort of reiterate, we don't have any sort of online homework thing, so there's no My Math Lab or WebWorks or anything like that. So you don't need an access code or anything. You just need this textbook. In terms of a calculator is permitted. It's not required. It won't be particularly useful, but if you do have a scientific calculator that you want to use, feel free to do so. Okay. There's a bunch of course objectives and student learning outcomes here. We're not going to really talk about those right now because, again, maybe a lot of them wouldn't really mean too much. Not a bad idea if you want, as we sort of progress through the summer over these 8 weeks, take a glance at these and make sure that you're really learning what you're supposed to be learning. But for now, we'll move on to the sort of second page here. The second page of the syllabus starts to give you guys the grading information, which is probably one of the major things you want to know about our sort of course. So here's our grading policy. We have sort of 4 categories that will determine your grade. There are 4 what we call take-home quizzes. Each of those is worth 5% for a total of 20%. you guys will have what we call 3 midterms. Technically, I guess I could put in quotes if you guys could see me, in-class midterms. Obviously, there's no in-class component because everything's online. But there will be 3 midterms, each 10%, so that's 30%. Then there will be what we call 3 take-home exams, which also are 10% each, so a total of 30%. And then finally, we'll have a comprehensive or cumulative final, which is 20%. We'll talk about each of these in turn, so let's get into talking about those. Also notice standard grading scale here, right? 90 and above A, 80 and above B, 70 and above C, everything else D or F. All right, so let's talk about each of these categories here. So first of all, quizzes. There's going to be 4 quizzes during the term. For these quizzes, you guys are allowed to work in groups of up to 3 people. That's optional. You don't have to work in a group if you don't want to. If you want to work in a group one time and then you don't want to in the future, that's fine as well. It's totally up to you guys. But just keep in mind, if you do work in a group, it can be up to 3 people in that group. If you do choose to work as a group, you're going to only submit 1 set of answers, so you guys will have to figure out some sort of way to collaborate, make sure everybody's on board, and once you submit that 1 set of answers, obviously it's going to have all your guys' names and information on that 1 set, then all the group members are going to receive the same grade for this. In terms of submitting quizzes in general for everybody, quizzes are going to be due at 11:59 p.m. on the day that they are said to be due, so you have until the very end of the day that they're due. You're going to be submitting all your quizzes electronically, and when you submit those, you're going to have to submit them as a single PDF file. Now, as we get a little bit further into our class over the next day or two, I'll send out some information about some different free apps and software that allow you to compile images or PDFs or documents into single PDFs. So before we get to the first quiz or first midterm, you'll definitely want to make sure you practice that and are comfortable putting everything into a single PDF. It's really essential that you go ahead and put everything into a single PDF file. It makes the grading significantly easier. Make sure that I don't miss any random one picture of a single problem off the side, anything like that. Keep in mind that submissions that are late, so things that come in after that 11:59 p.m. deadline or things that are in an incorrect format will be penalized there. When you guys do submit things, quizzes, midterms, exams, whatever, you're always going to receive within, an hour or two a confirmation email saying that I did receive it, so you'll know that it actually did make it through. We'll talk more about submitting quizzes and midterms and exams and stuff. You guys will see like a post about that on Canvas in another day or so. So we won't talk too much about that now, but just keep in mind quizzes, right? There'll be 4 of them during the term, sort of 1 for each quarter of the class. When you work on these, you're allowed to work in a group if you want to. If you choose not to work in a group, obviously feel free to ask questions on the discussion board, talk to some of the other students in the class, whatever you sort of like there, ask me questions about it. These quizzes are really check-ins for the basic skills that you're getting in each section of the class. So we're not saying that the quizzes are going too deep into the matter. You just want to make sure the quizzes are basically there to make sure you're getting the computational things in each part of the class. All right, let's talk about midterms. Midterms are going to be held every 2 weeks on the last day of the week for us, which is Thursday. Now, again, since we're fully online, you guys will probably see like videos and content go up on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But, so the last official day of our class each week is Thursday. So that's the day we're going to have our midterms. So you guys will have midterms on the Thursdays of week 2, 4, and 6. Those dates are Thursday, July 2nd, Thursday, July 16th, and Thursday, July 30th. So those will be the 3 days that you guys have midterms. Midterms are made available to you at 9 a.m., so they'll be available to you at 9 a.m., and they're due by 5 p.m. So you have about 8 hours to complete each midterm. Does that mean that the midterms are written for you guys to take 8 hours? Not at all. The midterms are written in a format that probably takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but I'm trying to give you guys an 8-hour window there, just in case you have other things that come up, and you have issues formatting, whatever, just trying to give you guys a bit of flexibility there. When you guys are taking your midterms, you're going to be allowed access to your notes. Again, though, because there is sort of a time crunch there, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., only 8 hours to do the exam. I strongly recommend you organize, you condense your notes. If we were taking this class in person, you guys would be allowed access to only a sheet of notes for your exams. Obviously, you don't have to be as extreme with that right now, but it's not a bad idea to do a lot of condensing before the exams, just so that while you're working on questions and you want to reference something, you're not having to go through stacks of different notes as you're doing it. So you will be allowed access to your notes for your midterms. When working on midterms, you guys are not allowed to discuss or work on the midterms with any other students in the class, so there should be no discussion of midterm questions between you guys as you're working on them. Midterms will be just like quizzes in the sense that they'll be submitted electronically and must be submitted as a single PDF file. Again, I'll be sending out some information about how to put everything into a single PDF file, but I strongly recommend doing some practice with that to make sure you're comfortable with it before it's actually an exam day and you're up against this time deadline. There are no makeup exams for our class. However, if you do miss one exam for some reason, maybe an emergency, or if one of the midterms simply does not go as well as you would hope, one exam score can be replaced by the final exam if the final exam score is higher. So if you do significantly better on your final exam, then we will replace your lowest exam score with your final exam. Once again, also submissions that are late or in an incorrect format will be penalized here. What are the point of midterms? How do they differ besides, just policy differences? Well, midterms really assess the major skills or concepts in each section. So each midterm, they happen every 2 weeks, which is every quarter of our course. So those midterms focus on the major skills and concepts from that section. So they're basically a accumulation of the things that we were covering in that quarter of the class. That means midterms will still be mostly computational, but they will have some theoretical concepts on there. So quizzes are almost entirely computational. Midterms are going to be somewhat computational, somewhat theoretical. All right, third category, take-home exams. Following each midterm, you guys will have a take-home exam portion. Now, notice I'm putting take-home in quotation marks. I would visually give you guys little quotation marks with the hands if I could, but we're calling this a take-home portion because it has some policy differences between the take-home exam and the midterm. First of all, when doing a take-home portion, you guys do not have a time crunch of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Instead, you'll have about 1 week each time to complete each take-home exam. And the take-home exams will be released right after you finish the corresponding midterm. The take-home exams are due by 11:59 p.m. on the day that it's due. Take-home exams, you guys are free to discuss with each other. So if you have questions and you want to go back and forth and talk to each other about how best to approach things, that's totally fine. However, even if you talk to other people, you do need to submit your own work for a take-home exam. So the big difference between the quizzes and take-home exams is that quizzes, you can talk to each other and submit answers as a group. In a take-home exam, you can talk to each other, but everybody needs to submit your own work. Take-home exams will be submitted electronically and again must be submitted as a single PDF file. Submissions that are late, incorrect format will be penalized. What's the point of the take-home exams? Well, the take-home exams will be much, much more theoretical. They're going to be almost exclusively based on like a true and false format, where with true statements, we'll be asking you guys to give a proof, and with false statements, we'll be asking you guys to give counterexamples. We're going to talk a lot about that in our class, so don't worry if you're not completely comfortable right now with proofs and counterexample structures. We'll do examples of that. It'll be one of the major foci, something like that, in our class. But take-home exams are really the theoretical assessment in our class. All right, last portion here, final exam. Final exam is a comprehensive or cumulative exam, meaning it does cover everything from our class. That is an advantage. Normally in the normal semester, the final exam would cover 16 weeks of materials. You'd be thinking back 4 months. For you guys, condensing this class into 8 weeks means that the final exam only requires you to remember back 8 weeks. Final exam is held on the last day of class, Thursday, August 13th. So once again, it'll be on a Thursday. It'll be Thursday of week 8. Final exam has a slightly larger window than the midterm exams. It'll be available 9 a.m. and then due at 9 p.m. the same day. Final exam is generally a little bit longer than the midterm exams, but very similar format. Once again, you're going to be allowed access to your notes for your final exam. So even though it's an exam, still allowed access. Just like the midterms, however, you will not be allowed to discuss or work with anyone else when working on the final exam, so there can be no communication there. Final exams will be submitted electronically, just like everything else, submitted as a single PDF file. Final exam really tries to wrap up all the most important aspects of the entire class. That's why if you do well on your final exam, it can replace your lowest exam score if that's beneficial for you. Because really the final exam goes back over and recaps all the major things. Okay, so again, just to summarize there, let's go back real quick. Grades basically determined by 4 categories: take-home quizzes, midterms, take-home exams, and final. All of these will be tracked on Canvas, so you guys can see as things are going along where your grade sort of stands. Do keep in mind, though, that 2 things about looking at your sort of grade on Canvas. One is that until you actually take something from each category, Canvas is sort of making a weighting adjustment because you won't have taken your final exam yet or something. So it's the best estimate of your overall grade, but again, your overall grade, and probably goes without saying, can't really be determined until the very end of the class. Other thing is that Canvas, unfortunately, is unable to handle the replacement of an exam score with the final exam, so I have to do that manually. So again, really, Canvas is just going to be keeping track so you guys can see how you did on every assignment, and then at the very end of the class, we'll put all that together, determine your final grade. All right, let's talk about some general requirements and important dates. Some of this is going to be about like the drop deadline, withdrawal deadline, all that sort of stuff, but some of it's also just going to be sort of recapping things I've already mentioned in some of the emails that have gone out to you guys, but just how is our course going to run. So, as you guys know, our class is entirely online. Technically, to use the fancy educational term, our class is entirely asynchronous, meaning that there are no mandatory scheduled meetings that you have to attend. All the lecture materials will be presented through videos posted on YouTube. There'll be a video playlist called Math 191 Summer 2020. It'll be populated sort of every day. New videos will start to show up. It's going to take a little while at the beginning here because I'm sort of playing catch-up, starting the class, and having to make the materials because this will be the first time that I've taught 191 online. I've taught 191 many, many times in person, but this is the first time online, so the video creation is all new. So you guys will see those videos popping up on sort of a daily basis. When videos are posted, I'll update you guys so that you sort of know new things are there, and I'll also try to give you a recommended schedule for what you should be watching when. Now again, that schedule is just a recommendation because it's up to you guys to find a schedule that works for you and make sure that you're keeping up with the class. When you guys start to see the actual lecture videos, you'll see that in the notes or the description of each video, there'll be links to the blank version of the PDF that we use in that. Some people like to print those out or have those in front of them as the video goes so that you can fill them out. And there will be a link to the fully annotated PDF that happens by the end of the video. So if you just want to see everything that I wrote down during the video, you can also get a PDF of that. So as you start to see the sort of lecture or content videos, make sure you also are looking at the description for those links to those PDFs. Associated with each lecture, the lectures are usually going to be titled by the section of the textbook they correspond to. There's also suggested exercises that can be found on Canvas. Some of those are from your textbook, and some of those are ones that I've written directly. Ones from your textbook are generally going to be odd numbers so that you can look them up in the back of your textbook and check. And the ones that I write for you guys, I post full solutions, fully worked out solutions, so you can look through those, make sure you're doing them right there. I highly recommend that you do as many of the practice problems as possible to make sure you're comfortable with the topics and concepts presented in the videos. To be honest, especially at the beginning of this class when we're working on techniques of integration, conceptually, there's not too much to really say because it's a computational idea. Because it's a computational idea, it's just going to require a lot of practice, so make really good use of those suggested exercises. Where do you find all the documents and suggested exercises and things like that? Well, all the documents necessary for our class will be found on our Canvas site. If you go to the Files section of Canvas, you'll already see that there's some review materials, our syllabus, which we're talking over right now. All those things are up there, and there's folders for suggested exercises, etc. Anything that I write for you guys, any suggested exercises, review guides that I put up, I also will always post a solutions document so you can reference that as well. Like I also mentioned, Canvas will be used to keep track of our grades and also to provide you guys a source of announcements. I'll use the announcements feature to let you know if there's big things coming up, also to give you guys those schedules about where you should be at sort of on a regular basis. All right, this big block here, all about ways to ask questions, get help here. We've already sort of mentioned them, but let's just go back over. Since our class is completely online, there are several ways to ask questions or get help during our course. First of all, as we mentioned, there's those online office hours through Zoom. Remember, you'll receive a reminder each morning with the link to the Zoom meeting. The times are at the top of the syllabus. I also keep in mind, if you can only make it for a certain part of that, midway through, feel free to do so. They're just open office hours for you guys to hop on, ask any questions. If you can't make one of those office hours and we do cover some material, right? If we answer some questions, work through some problems, whatever, I will be posting the actual slides or notes that we cover, the whiteboards that we use in Zoom, onto your guys' Canvas site so you can look over those as well. What else besides office hours? Well, there will also be Canvas discussion boards. I put up a Canvas discussion board for each set of suggested exercises, each quiz, whatever. That's a great way for you guys to discuss back and forth so that you guys have an easy way of communicating. I will also hop onto those discussion boards and answer questions, but I really also hope that they facilitate discussions between all of you. If we were in person, there would be opportunities for you guys to work problems together, to go up on the whiteboards, and get those opportunities to sort of work with each other. We can't do that as much because everything's online here, but those discussion boards are our best estimate of it. Finally, also, if you just have direct questions that you don't want to post on the discussion board or something like that, you can always just email me directly. You can email me through Canvas, or you can just use the ECC email. Doesn't matter which one. I will try to check the email regularly, but I will just let you guys know, since there's so much content to be created, usually during the middle part of the day, sort of late morning through early evening, that's what I'm doing. I'm making these videos like the one you're watching right now. So I might not be checking email quite as regularly. So probably you'll see more responses sort of later in the evening or earlier in the morning. All right, important deadlines both here, right? Last day to drop or add the class. Mainly to drop the class without permanent notation. So basically saying that, you just realize this isn't the right class for you, you don't really like the fully online format, something like that. That is next Monday, June 29th. So if you want to drop the class and have no record that you were in it, get a full refund, all that stuff, that has to happen by Monday, June 29th. Since we are an 8-week class, we're going twice as fast as we would normally go. There's going to be a ton of stuff going on this first week. So you're going to get a really good sense of what the class is going to be like over the next couple days before this drop deadline. Do keep in mind this is a very different format than what we've previously done. So if it doesn't feel like it's the right format to you, that's totally understandable. You have until that June 29th deadline to drop the class. All right. Other deadline, this one's much later down. This is Thursday, July 30th. I believe that this is the Thursday of week 6. This is the one where if you are unhappy with how you're sort of doing, you want to avoid a sort of failing grade or something like that, you can drop the class and receive a W. For you guys, you will get a chance to take exam 3, midterm 3, the last of the midterms, before this deadline. So you'll have a lot of great information before you need to make that decision. Finally, and this guy's super important now since we're fully online, you're responsible for all the announcements issued during class time. And unfortunately now class time means pretty much all the time. So definitely make sure you check your El Camino email on a regular basis, and definitely make sure you check Canvas on a regular basis. I do tend to sort of double state or restate most of the major things that are going on. Like I'll send out an email and put it on Canvas, or send it out in an email or mention it in a video, things like that, so that there's always sort of that double check to make sure that you hear it at least once. But definitely make sure to take the time to be regularly checking email and regularly checking Canvas. All right, last little page here. Just a couple things to wrap up. Cornerstones to success, how to be successful in this class. Well, it's definitely a challenging class. 191 is a challenging class to begin with. This new format, since we are all learning how to sort of adapt to an online learning environment, that also adds a challenge. So I just want to call attention to a couple things. One, obviously, is keeping up. This is a big burden put on you guys now since we're online. Since everything is asynchronous, you don't have to do anything at any particular time. So it's easy to sort of let things sort of fall behind watching the videos or doing the exercises or things like that. You really want to try to come up with a good schedule that works for you, right? The videos are going to be up there all the time, so you have the freedom to sort of choose when to sort of watch them. And same thing with the exercises, but you don't want to let it all pile up, right? I'll try, again, to also remind you about when things are due pretty far in advance so that you can sort of plan those things ahead of time. But you got to make sure you keep up with the material, keep rereading your notes, condensing your notes, annotating your notes, rewatching the lecture videos, and looking at the exercises. You got to make sure you also take good notes. Remember, you're going to have notes. You'll have access to your notes for everything. For your midterms, your quizzes, your take-home exams, your final, everything. Being well organized is going to make sure that you actually can complete the assignments in the time frame that you're being asked to do so. So make sure you're organized. You're not just taking the notes and just putting everything down. You also want to condense or at least annotate so you know where to find everything. Studying adequately before exams, I think that goes without saying. You guys at this point have probably taken several other math classes. You know how important it is to prepare for your exams. I do provide review guides for the exam, so you'll have an additional study material. You're going to want to make sure you work very thoroughly through those review guides to really prepare you for the exams. And again, we'll talk more about that as we get closer to them. And then, of course, you want to make use of the resources. You have these online office hours. You have discussion boards. You can contact me directly. You're going to have your textbook, and you have the other students in the class. Very, very important to make use of all those resources here, right? One of the advantages of being in an online class is that you have access to more resources, right? The lecture videos are going to be up always, right? If we were doing this in class, you guys would get to see the lecture once, and that would be it. Here, if you really want, you can rewatch some of the lectures several times. But you want to make use of that as much as you can. All right, these two statements here, right? Normally there'd be a statement also about like student behavior, but to be honest, there really isn't because we're not going to be in class or anything like that. So, you know, I'll just hopefully ask you guys to be polite when you're posting online, and I think that sort of goes without saying. Academic honesty, avoid cheating in all situations here, right? Like I said, during midterms and finals, there should be no communication between you guys as students. For quizzes and take-home exams, feel free to talk, right? So it's very clear which assignments you can, which assignments you can't discuss. If there is any evidence of dishonesty, then we have to take disciplinary action. Usually that's a failing grade on the exam or assignment, and we have to reference it to our administration. Then there's also the students with special needs in the ADA statement, right? This is about accommodating you guys, making sure that you get everything you need for this sort of class. Normally there'd be some discussion here about special resource center and exams. Since the exams have an open window, that's not as... I'm not going to make as big of a point of that, but if you do have any special accommodations or just things in general as we move through the class, please let me know, and I'll try to always, sort of adapt and change the stuff to better help you guys out here. 191 is one of my favorite classes to teach. I've taught it a bunch at El Camino over the last 5 or 6 years, and I really think it can be an incredibly beneficial class. So I really want you guys to get as much as you possibly can out of our class. So if you have anything that you need or anything you'd like to see as we're working through, always feel free to let me know, and I'll try to bring it into our class as much as possible. For now, that's going to wrap up our discussion of our syllabus. Our syllabus is posted on Canvas, so you can look over it if you want. After this will be the first video you guys will see on your Math 191 playlist. After this, we'll get into a little bit of a review video, and then we'll actually start into the official content for our class. Do keep in mind, a little bit weird, but since it is, calculus Part 2, basically, we do start right from section 6.1 in your textbook, so the first true new content video will be section 6.1.